Hey guys, so today we're going to be making a ladybug and a butterfly, and on the inside, underneath their wings, we're going to be drawing the life cycle of each of those. So the supplies that you're going to need are some white paper. You can also have colored paper, but it's not necessary. Markers, which I have here, some colored pencils, or crayons. So we're going to start by drawing a picture or what you think a ladybug would look like. So I'm going to draw that with my pencil on my white piece of paper. So typically a ladybug has kind of a circle body, and then it's got a little rounded head at the top. And then I'm going to draw a line down the middle. Messed up a little bit, so I'm just going to do some erasing. There we go. And so that's what my ladybug is looking like right now. So I'm going to keep it on top of this pink paper, and I'm going to cut out that shape. Now, if you would prefer to draw that on both shapes, that's fine, but I want to make sure that my shapes are exactly the same. And so now I have my ladybug and a pink part as well. So what I'm going to do is on the pink one, which is going to be my top layer, I'm going to take one of my darker markers and I'm going to shade in any spots and the head of my ladybug. So I'm going to go ahead and color in the head of my ladybug. And I'm using markers for this just because it's a little bit easier. So I have my ladybug's head. And now my ladybug has some spots. I am going to cut straight down the middle so that my ladybug has wings that can open up. But I'm not going to cut all the way through the head. So I've got something that looks kind of like this. Now on my white piece of paper, I'm not going to use the side that has lines on it because that was just for sketching. I'm going to put the ladybug life cycle. Now, in my guide, it gave me some pretty good pictures to go off of, but they are missing one, and they're missing the egg part of the life cycle. So I'm going to draw the outline of a leaf. I'm not going to draw anything in this head area. I'm going to draw the outline of a leaf. Just like that. And then I'm going to draw some kind of orangey yellow eggs on there. And so now I've got my eggs. Now, of course, I can't do this without labeling it. So underneath that, I'm going to write egg. So then, looking at our picture again, the next one is a larva. So I'm going to find a black and an orange. And if you don't have a black like me, you can use a brown or a gray because not every single larva is going to look exactly the same. So I'm going to draw the outline of the larva, which is kind of like an oval. It's got some legs. It's got some yellow spots. Make sure I put those on there. They're actually almost a little bit more orange. So I'm going to put some orange spots on my larva. Looks like it has 4 of those. And then I'm going to finish coloring it in. Again, if you have a black or a brown, you can use that as well. I would have liked a little bit darker color, but gray is what I had. So that's what we're working with. And then I'm going to label that larva. Then at the bottom, I'm going to put the next step, which is the pupa. And that's also kind of an orangey color. I shouldn't have put those pencils away. Except this time it's more orange and has black spots. So I'm gonna again do the outline. Do some darker spots. Color the rest of it in an orange. And write the word pupa underneath. So now we've gone from an egg to a larva to a pupa. And the last step is, of course, a ladybug. So I'm going to take this gray and I'm going to find a red or a pink, just dependent on what you have. And I'm going to draw my little ladybug. Start with the head. I'm going to color in some spots. And then color the rest in red. And then underneath that part, we're going to write adult. Now we're almost done, but we're missing something really important. In any life cycle, you've got to have arrows that tell you which way you're supposed to go. So on this one, we have our egg. We're going to come around to our larva, down to our pupa, up to our adult, and then back to eggs, because that adult is going to lay more eggs for next year. So I'm going to take, I think I'm actually going to use one of my markers for this, and I'm going to use pink for our ladybug. So I'm going to draw an arrow from egg to larva, then from larva to pupa, from pupa to adult, and then from adult back to egg. Now, the adult doesn't turn into an egg. An adult has the eggs, and then the adult dies, which is kind of sad, but that's the circle of life. So now I have my ladybug life cycle, and this is what it looks like. So now I'm going to take my pink ladybug, I'm going to take some glue, and I'm only going to put that right where the head is. If you have a glue stick, that's fine. If you have rubber cement, I just have some Elmer's school glue here. And then we're going to line these up. I'm going to make sure that this side with my life cycle is touching the pink. So once you have this glued on, you may realize that there's a spot or two where you need to trim up. So I'm going to trim this area right here and just a little bit around the head, just so it's not quite as obvious that something's underneath it. Because we kind of want that life cycle inside to be a surprise. So now we have our ladybug, and then when you open up the ladybug's wings, you're going to find the life cycle of a ladybug underneath it. Ta-da! So then you want to make sure to put that in a place where it's going to dry really, really well. And then hopefully when we come back to school, you can show your teachers all about the life cycle of a ladybug. All right, so now we're gonna work on doing our butterfly. So again, I have my white paper in front of some orange paper, and this was actually used to make sure my ink was working, but I was thinking that this would kind of be a really cool design on my butterfly. So even if you don't have blank paper, that's completely fine. You can draw your own design, you can use something that is similar colors, so I'm gonna do a monarch butterfly, and since it's orange and black, I thought the orange and black of this piece of paper would look kind of cool. So I'm going to stack my papers again. I'm gonna draw the outline of my butterfly. I typically start my butterflies with a long center, like that. And then the top wings tend to be a little bit bigger than the bottom wings, not always. If you look at B, that one has pretty similar wings, but if you look at E or A or C, those wings are really, really different in size. So since I'm doing a monarch, I'm gonna be looking at E, and I'm gonna try and trace those shapes as closely as possible. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine is certainly not. I think my second wing is a little bit better than the first, but this is not about perfection. So that's my butterfly. A little lopsided. I might fix this other wing a little bit when I go to cut it out. So now I'm going to cut around just the outside. I don't want to cut the wings away from the body. And make sure that you're leaving enough room that you will be able to draw on these. I did make this butterfly a little bit smaller than my ladybug, but I still wanted to make sure that I left enough room for me to draw in the life cycle stages. All right, and so there's my finished butterfly. He's a little lopsided, but that's all right. I'm just gonna do a little bit of touch up on where I drew my lines versus where I cut them. So I just touched up a little bit, did a little bit of erasing, and there's my butterfly. And I think the front of my butterfly actually looks pretty cool like that. So I am gonna color in its body to kind of just give it a little bit of definition. And monarchs tend to have kind of an outline around their wings, so I've colored in his body. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna kind of outline his wings a little bit. So there's half of his wings outlined. Kind of just gives a little bit more definition to it. It's a little bit easier to tell that it's a butterfly now. All right, there's my butterfly. He is ready to go. I guess it's a he. I don't know. I guess it could be whatever you want it to be. And now I'm going to move on to my life cycle. So the butterfly didn't come with as quite a nice life cycle as the caterpillar did, but it does give me some pictures on the front that I can go off of. So again, it did leave out the fact that all life cycles for insects, almost all, start with eggs on a leaf, or eggs somewhere in the ground. They don't just start out as a larva. They all pretty much start as eggs. So I do know that butterflies like to lay theirs on leaves. So I'm gonna take my green again, and I'm gonna take this light orange to be my eggs. I need to sharpen my pencil. And you can start yours anywhere on whichever wing you want to. I'm just gonna start on the top right-hand corner because to me that's what's speaking to me right now. So I'm gonna draw a leaf. And then I'm gonna put some eggs on it. I think this time I'm just gonna lightly shade in the rest of my leaf just to give it a little bit more color. And I'm gonna label this egg again. So I've got my first wing done. So then next is the larva stage. Now, we pretty much all know what the larva stage of a butterfly is because we see caterpillars all the time. We don't see ladybug larvae around very much, but we definitely see caterpillars. So in this one, the caterpillars are pretty much just kind of a grayish black. So I'm just gonna draw my little caterpillar. And the way I draw a caterpillar is I just draw a bunch of circles right next to each other and then put some little legs on it. May not be the best caterpillar you've ever seen, but it works for me. And then I'm gonna label that larva. Next is the part that we hardly ever get to see because it's camouflaged so well, and that is the chrysalis. So again, here's our picture of a chrysalis right here in the middle. They're usually some sort of brown. They're usually on sticks. Milkweed is a really popular plant for those chrysalises. Chrysalides, that's what I learned from this guide. Multiple chrysalis is chrysalide. Never would have guessed that. So I'm gonna sharpen up my brown. And for this, I am gonna draw a stick first, or maybe it's a branch. And then I'm gonna draw with a little bit lighter brown, almost like a golden color. I'm gonna draw the chrysalis hanging down from it. So usually they're kind of flat on one edge and they kind of have a point on another. And then we're gonna label that pupa. And then our last one, hopefully you've guessed it by now because it's what we've already made, is going to be our butterfly, and that's gonna be our adult insect that we're working on. So I'm gonna take my gray to make an outline of my butterfly first, and then I'll come back with some other colors, primarily orange. gonna give him a couple little designs. And then I'm gonna come back in with that orange and just lightly shade the rest of him in where I don't have any designs. And then we're not going to label this butterfly, we're going to label this adult. So now I've got my little butterfly up there. Now again, you need to have your arrows. For this one, it's gonna be a little tricky because you've got the space between the wings, but I'll walk you through it. So the first arrow that I'm gonna do, just because it's simply the easiest, is gonna be from adult to egg, just straight across my butterfly. Just like that. Then to go from egg to larva, I'm gonna make it look like it's a straight line, even though there's nothing in this space right here. Then I'm gonna go from larva to pupa, and then I'll do the same thing from pupa to adult. Even though there's not a line there, I'm gonna try and make it look like there is. So this is what you're left with. Now, this one's a little tricky. What you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take your butterfly and you wanna fold your wings forward right at the edge of his body on both sides. So I'm gonna fold these wings forward, I'm gonna open them up, and I'm gonna fold the other wings forward. So now he kind of has some dimension to him. He's not just a flat little butterfly. Because on this one, I'm gonna place my glue right here in his body and attach the bodies together. Now I'm gonna make sure that this side is facing up and this side is facing up. So now, when I look at this butterfly, I can fold his wings up and see the different stages of the life cycle. I hope you guys enjoyed these crafts. They're pretty simple, but they're a good way to review things, and I honestly am probably gonna hang these up. I might pin them onto our butterfly home. I might stick the ladybug near our ladybug house, you know, just to kind of put some color up and around.